In the heart of Alako City, tucked between busy roads and sprawling markets, sat one of the most respected public primary schools in the area. At the helm was Mrs. Adeolua, a no-nonsense headmistress, with a sharp tongue and a heart wrapped in discipline. Her presence alone could silence a noisy hall, and every student knew her as Mrs. No-Nonsense. Supporting her were two contrasting assistants, Mr. Balue, a diligent man with a dangerous habit. He couldn't mind his business. He always had a comment, a suspicion, or a tale to tell. Then there was Mrs. Sumbo, the warm, motherly figure who, despite her modest role, exuded quiet power. Her grown children, now wealthy, often sent gifts and luxury items to the school, making her a subtle envy among staff. Everything ran like clockwork until a transfer changed the rhythm. Miss Blessing, a young, vibrant, and strikingly beautiful teacher in her mid-20s, was posted to the school. With her engaging smile and graceful demeanor, she quickly became popular among staff and students alike. Her arrival felt like a breeze of fresh air. Students adored her, and even the most reserved teachers found themselves drawn to her charm. But something strange began to stir beneath the surface. Students who were once quiet suddenly became bold. Too bold. They started speaking rudely to teachers, ignoring rules, and acting like they were under a new spell of confidence. The shift was unsettling, but no one could quite place their finger on it. Then, one Friday evening, Mr. Ojo, a teacher, returned to the school to retrieve forgotten keys. As he approached the classroom block, he froze. Inside a dimly lit classroom, he saw two senior students in a compromising position, shocking and inappropriate for their age. He burst in, separating them with a yell, his face red with fury. The girl's name was Adefe, and as Mr. Ojo threatened to report her to the headmistress, she turned with a chilling stare and said something that made his blood run cold. "If you tell anyone, you won't live to finish the story." He laughed it off in disbelief, called Mrs. Adeolua immediately, but she didn't pick up. Determined, he rode home on a commercial motorcycle, ready to report it all the next day. But fate had other plans. Just as the headmistress returned his call and he opened his mouth to speak, he began to cough violently. Then, blood. The motorcycle skidded, and before anyone could help, a speeding trailer ended his story permanently. The school mourned deeply. In a cruel twist, Adefi, the very student involved, was chosen to represent the student body at his condolence visit. As the school tried to move on from the tragedy, whispers filled the corridors. Something wasn't right. And it had all started when Miss Blessing arrived. Since Mr. Ojo's tragic death, the atmosphere at the school was heavy, like a storm waiting to break. Teachers whispered in hushed tones. Students walked a little faster through corridors. Even the morning assembly, once lively and filled with songs, had grown eerily quiet. But one thing never changed: Mr. Balua's mouth. Though hard-working and pious, Mr. Balue had a chronic flaw. He couldn't stay out of people's business. He would comment on anything: someone's clothes, a latecomer's excuse, or even the color of rice at lunch. And when something truly juicy crossed his path, he couldn't help but spread it. At home one evening, over a steaming plate of amala, he casually told his wife what he had seen that afternoon at ShopRite. "I saw Mr. Adeolua, yes, the headmistress's husband, with Miss Blessing. They were walking together, so close they could be mistaken for newlyweds." His wife dropped her spoon. Are you sure? I followed them inside," he continued, proud. "They didn't see me. They were laughing like old friends. Something is going on." But his wife warned him. "Don't involve yourself. I've told you, you and your mouth will cause trouble one day. Not everything you see you talk about." He waved her off. "Do you know who I am? My grandfather was the herbalist of the great King Adagun. I have spiritual immunity. Nothing can touch me." The next day, unable to resist, he told Mrs. Sumbo what he saw. She blinked, startled. "You're sure?" "I swear, I even saw them enter a house together." Mrs. Sumbo shook her head slowly. "Let it go, Balue. Some things are not meant to be spoken about. Besides, it could be innocent." But Mr. Balue's curiosity burned. Still, no one encouraged him, so he let it go, for the moment. As the term wore on, the school prepared for exams. That's when a different kind of scandal erupted, one no one could have predicted. Odunayo, a quiet, deeply religious 14-year-old in primary 4, was caught with examination cheat sheets tucked into her clothes during the Christian Religious Studies exam. The same Odunayo who preached on the assembly ground. the same girl who prayed loudly in class and scolded others for copying. The supervising teacher, shocked and disappointed, slapped her in a moment of frustration. But what Odunayo said in response sent chills down her spine. That hand won't be useful to you again. Dragged to the headmistress's office, Odunayo faced Mrs. Adeoluwa, Mr. Balue, and Mrs. Sumbo. As expected, the headmistress gave her several strokes of the cane. Mrs. Sumbo pleaded for mercy, and eventually Odunayo was let off with a stern warning. But the consequences came quickly. That same teacher had a kitchen accident during the holidays, a small knife cut. Within days her hand swelled, turned black, and before school resumed, it had to be amputated. Rumors flew. Miss Blessing walked through it all with calm eyes and a small smile. No one could prove anything, yet everything felt wrong. And in the middle of it all, Mrs. Adeoluwa changed. Her strictness turned to cold silence. Her fiery voice now flat and tired. No one knew why, until she finally broke down and told Mrs. Sumbo everything. It was a gloomy Wednesday afternoon when Mrs. Sumbo, sensing something was deeply wrong, gently approached Mrs. Adeoluwa in her office. Her usually vibrant friend now sat hunched behind her desk, eyes dull, hands shaking slightly as they clutched a red pen. "Madam," Mrs. Sumbo said softly, "what is going on? You've not been yourself." After a long silence, the headmistress's lips trembled. Then the words poured out like water from a broken dam. "My husband packed out," she whispered. "He left me." Mrs. Sumbo gasped. "What? Why?" "He didn't say. He just left. Disowned the children too. Blocked all our lines, like we never existed." For a moment the room was quiet. Then Mr. Balue, who had just walked in, froze. "He did what?" Mrs. Adeoluwa turned slowly. "Yes, Balue, he's gone." Mr. Balue's mouth moved before his brain caught up. "It's Miss Blessing, I swear. I saw them together that day at ShopRite. I traced them to a house in Omoli Phase 2. They were laughing, holding hands." "Are you sure?" Mrs. Sumbo asked, her eyes wide. 100%. I didn't want to say anything before, but it's her. She took him." Mrs. Adeoluwa's face twisted with rage. Her voice rose like thunder. "She will pay for this. I will make sure." "No," Mrs. Sumbo interrupted, standing quickly and covering her friend's mouth. "Don't say anything here. Don't shout. This matter is deeper than it looks." She glanced toward the open window, then back at her friend. "Let's not fight. Let's talk to her, beg her." "What?" the headmistress asked in disbelief. "I know it sounds mad, but trust me, I've felt something strange about her since the beginning. If we fight her, we'll lose. Let's go low, just this once." After moments of hesitation, Mrs. Adeoluwa gave a slow nod. The next day, Miss Blessing was summoned to the headmistress's office. Inside, she met two women she had quietly turned upside down. But instead of rage or confrontation, what she saw left her speechless. Mrs. Adeoluwa, proud, stern, feared across the school, was kneeling before her. "Please," she said quietly, "give me back my husband, I'm begging you." Miss Blessing chuckled, leaned back in her chair, and crossed her legs. "Ah, so the lioness has come crawling. Please," Mrs. Sumbo added, her hands folded, "we came in peace." "I didn't come to this school for your husband," Miss Blessing said, standing. "I came because I saw something, potential. Bright children, full of energy. But your headmistress here, she talks too much, insults her staff, takes everything too seriously, so I decided to help her, find rest." Mrs. Adeoluwa sobbed softly. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." Miss Blessing sighed dramatically. "If not for Sumbo, who minds her business and knows how to share." She glanced at the headmistress. "Your husband will return, in 14 days. He's only with me because, well, I haven't fully enjoyed him yet." Both women lowered their heads, defeated but relieved. Then Miss Blessing smiled coldly. "But I'm not done. One more thing will happen in this school, and it's already started." Just then, shouting erupted from outside. The screams outside the headmistress's office shattered the tense silence. All three women, Mrs. Adeoluwa, Mrs. Sumbo, and Miss Blessing, froze. "What now?" the headmistress whispered, rising shakily to her feet. They rushed out. Near the staff room a crowd had gathered, teachers, students, a few non-teaching staff. In the middle of the chaos stood a man trembling, confused, ashamed. It was Mr. Balue. Beside him, to everyone's horror, knelt the school's head girl, a bright, promising student. Her uniform was crumpled, her face red with humiliation. But what shocked everyone most was the official from the Ministry of Education, standing nearby, phone in hand, having just witnessed the unthinkable. The room was tense. Mr. Balue's mouth quivered. I don't know what happened. One minute I was correcting her, the next, He stopped himself, shaking his head as if trying to wake from a dream. This isn't me. I swear on my father's grave, I don't remember anything. But no one listened. The ministry official didn't say much. He simply took down names and walked away. Everyone knew what was coming. That afternoon the school was silent again, but in a different way, like it had been robbed of its spirit. By the next day, news broke. Mr. Balue had been dismissed from the civil service. His years of dedication gone. Just like that. No investigation, no room for defense, only silence, shame, and a letter from the commission. He didn't return to school to collect his things. That same week, Miss Blessing moved through the school corridors like royalty. No one dared question her anymore. She was untouchable. Even those who once whispered about her now looked away when she passed. But her time was almost up. Exactly 2 weeks after the secret meeting, Mr. Adeolua returned home. Like a man waking from a long nightmare. He brought no explanations, only quiet apologies. He called his children, hugged them, cried, and begged for forgiveness. His wife forgave him. She didn't need to understand everything, she was just glad he was back. That same evening, a letter arrived from the State Education Board. It was short and unexpected. Miss Blessing had been transferred to another school. No reason was given, no goodbye. By the next morning, she was gone, just like that. But what she left behind was far from forgotten. Broken spirits, ruined careers, and a school that would never be the same again. In the quiet staff room, Mrs. Sumbo sat alone, staring out the window. The trees swayed gently in the breeze, but even the wind felt like it carried whispers. She sighed. They had survived the storm. But deep down she knew. This wasn't just a story of a teacher. It was a warning. Weeks passed, but the school had not healed. Though Miss Blessing was gone, her shadow remained like a lingering scent. Some students, once lively, had become withdrawn. Others, previously quiet, now displayed strange behaviors. Talking to themselves, staring blankly at walls, or murmuring things no one could understand. The once orderly school now felt spiritually unsettled. In the heart of it all, Mrs. Adeolua struggled to lead again. She stood at the morning assembly with a weak smile, trying to restore order. But the students didn't respond the same way. There was a coldness in the air, an invisible wall between teacher and pupil. Meanwhile, whispers about Mr. Hapalue filled the staff room. Some said he had moved out of town in disgrace. Others claimed he had fallen ill. A few even believed he had lost his mind, but no one really knew. He had simply vanished. One cloudy afternoon, while rearranging her drawer, Mrs. Adeolua found something chilling. A note folded tightly between exam scripts. It read, "You may think it's over, but I left something behind. Be careful who you trust." There was no signature. No handwriting she recognized, but something about it screamed her. She called Mrs. Sumbo, who read the note twice before folding it silently. She was planning something more, Mrs. Sumbo whispered, and we may still be in danger. They decided to bring in help. Not the ministry, not the school board, but a local prayer group. That weekend, the group came in with no fanfare. Just a few elderly women and 2 young men in white garments. They prayed around the school compound, sang softly, walked through every block, every classroom. At one point, in the staff room, one of the women stopped, stared at a chair Miss Blessing used to sit on, and said, "She didn't come alone." They looked at her, puzzled. She was working with something, a spirit not from here, it's still watching. That night, a strange wind howled through the school. Several windows shattered in the office block. A guard swore he saw a figure, tall, slim, and glowing, walking through the compound before disappearing into thin air. When school resumed on Monday, news of the prayer visit had spread. Some parents began to murmur. Others withdrew their children until the spiritual matter was resolved. But as the week passed, something began to shift. The students calmed down. Morning assembly resumed with energy. Even Odunayo, the religious girl once caught cheating, returned to her usual self, praying again, only this time more quietly, more sincerely. But for Mrs. Adeolua, peace remained a distant hope. She knew they had only survived the surface storm. Whatever had entered their school through Miss Blessing hadn't left fully. It was just waiting. It had been 2 months since Miss Blessing left. The school, once tense and chaotic, was slowly returning to its usual rhythm. Parents began to trust again. The students behaved better, Morning prayers echoed louder. The PTA praised Mrs. Adeolua for restoring order. But despite the calm, those closest to the storm knew better. Some things had not truly ended. In her office, Mrs. Adeolua still kept the anonymous note hidden deep in her drawer. Sometimes she would read it, then stare into space, heart pounding. "Be careful who you trust," it had said. She couldn't shake off the feeling that something was unfinished. One afternoon, while preparing end-of-term files, Mrs. Sumbo walked into her office. "There's something you should see," she said, holding a folded flyer. The headmistress opened it. A photo of Miss Blessing stared back at her, but the name below was different. Prophetess B.C. Adegoke, the Woman of Light. She blinked. "What is this?" "She's running a private spiritual academy in another state," Sumbo said. "A parent from here who relocated sent this to me. Their child is now in her school." "She's not done," Mrs. Adeolua whispered. "She's only changed form." Sumbo nodded slowly. "But maybe it's not our battle anymore." That evening, as dusk fell over Alako City, a strange silence covered the school grounds. The final staff meeting of the term had ended. Most teachers had left. Only Odunayo remained, waiting by the school gate. The headmistress, now walking past the assembly ground, paused when she saw the girl kneeling alone, eyes closed, whispering prayers under her breath. A breeze rustled the trees. "Odunayo," she called gently. The girl opened her eyes, stood up, and walked toward her. "Mummy, I want to say thank you," Odunayo said, her eyes clearer than ever, "for believing in me, even when I failed." The woman smiled faintly. "We all make mistakes. But you're brave to return." Odunayo looked down. "The thing that used to whisper to me, it's gone now. The night the women came to pray, I saw it leave." "You saw it?" the headmistress asked softly. The girl nodded. "A shadow, with no feet, it walked away from the school and melted into the wind." That night, Mrs. Adeolua sat alone at her desk. She opened her drawer, pulled out the final note, and burned it. It was over. Maybe not for the world, maybe not for those who'd yet to meet her. But for this school, for this chapter, the story had come to an end. As she looked through the office window one last time, she whispered a silent prayer over the buildings, the students, and the future. Because if there's one thing she had learned, it was this: not every teacher is sent to teach. Some are sent to test, and some are sent to destroy.